I started in this sport as a fan, my time in this sport will end the same way as a fan. I got to tell you, as a fan, the top 10 fights that I must see going into 2020. Number 10, I like Rumble Johnson versus Jon Jones. Not only do I think it's competitive, not only do I think it's a stylistic problem for both guys, it was also a fight that was promised to us. It was a fight that they both agreed upon, and it ended up not happening. It's very similar to Jon Jones versus Dan Henderson in that we had a level of anticipation. We knew that Dan Henderson had that big right hand that was an equalizer to anything. We knew that for sure. Well, we know that about Rumble's hands as well. And we know about Jon's ability to mix things up as well as anybody that's ever done it. Jon Jones is so good that it is hard to have a discussion about what is he better at. Takedowns and ground and pound, or staying on his feet in kickboxing. That's actually a very hard discussion that if you went over Jon's career and you tried to break it down analytically, fight by fight, you might come away, I don't know for sure. He's finished fights on his feet. He's made some fights, including his last one, nothing but a stand-up fight. Whenever he takes somebody down and gets on top of them, boy, he's a mess to get off of you. Big compliment to Jon. And also something compelling about a guy like Rumble who just doesn't get taken down and has the great equalizers. Number 9, you guys are going to love this one. Dan Hooker, how is this for matchmaking? Dan Hooker versus Cowboy Cerrone. That fight works for so many reasons. Those guys are very similar in the regard that at many different walks of life, times in their career, they are the number one contender. Cowboy's got to officially prove that and go fight for championships, but Hooker has every bit of that same argument. He's done all of the same heavy lifting. He's shown the same tenacity. He's got a tremendous fan base. People stop what they're doing to come out and see him fight, and there is something very special for the fans if we could ever get Hooker and Cowboy together. Number 8, I like Weili Zhang versus Joanna. For a couple of reasons. First off, Weili's the champion, so we know what seat she's in, but she needs someone in the passenger seat, and Joanna is never not a good option. At 2 different weight classes at the same time, Joanna is a good option. You have an added element to this, though, which is Joanna came out and shared with her. We never knew this, and we never would have known it. She offered it. She said, you know what, I've been offered Zhang 3 times. I turned her down all 3 times. And then she went on to tell the truth even further. She said, that's a hard fight. That girl's a tough fighter and nobody knows who she is. There's too much to risk. Well, that was very interesting coming from Joanna, who does not tip her hat or show respect or fear, whichever one you want to call it, to anybody ever. I mean, Joanna did a really cool thing. She put Zhang over. You bet she did. But I do see that fight a little bit differently. I do see Zhang as a major tornado that comes out with huge power on her feet. I also respect her ground and pound, but I do think it's a bit of a tornado, and I think that Joanna is a long-term fighter. She's made for 5 rounds. It's the kind of fight she wants. And yeah, there could be a storm to deal with in the first 3 minutes. You bet. But Joanna's one of those gals that's going to be there when those 3 minutes are gone, and she's still going to be in your face. I'd like to see that match. Number 7. George Masvidal versus Leon Edwards. Obviously, Leon Edwards deserves this fight. Not only because he's won his last 7 fights and Masvidal's a marquee fighter. I mean, you guys know what happened with the 3-piece and a soda. Right, they're back. For anybody that's a brand new fan, these 2 fight on the same card. They're backstage. Masvidal is doing his promo. He's doing media with somebody. Leon Edwards walks by and says something which didn't appear to be too aggressive, but with Masvidal, it doesn't have to be. Masvidal follows him, gets to where they're finally face-to-face. Masvidal touches him up 3 times. They get broken up. Leon never gets to answer for it. The whole thing's caught on video, and Leon's going, man, you have to get in there with me. You owe this to me. Masvidal said, you're right. Let's do it. Don't act like I'm scared to fight you. I just did fight you. And by the way, you had 4 friends with you. I was all by myself, so don't try to act like I'm scared. Okay, great. I'll listen to that. No problem. The problem with doing that fight is the fact that the altercation was caught on camera, and why people in the fight game think, oh, that's a wonderful thing. That's, of course, they need to do. How great would business be? That's not always what it's about. You have to do things the right way. If you start a precedence that all you have to do is go up and assault somebody and make sure it's caught on film to get your way in terms of matchmaking, that is a slippery slope that you don't want to go down. Now, does that mean that you ignore it forever? No, of course not. You still have rankings. You still have two guys in the same weight class. You still have a personal beef. Oh, and by the way, as number 5, you do have some footage that helps to tell the story. And if you do this the right way and the appropriate way, which is you use that as, oh, by the way, number 5, and you put enough time between something so that other guys don't get some fancy idea and start to get copycat syndrome, then that match works. In my opinion, that time has elapsed and that match does work. Number 6, I got to use George Masvidal again, this time against Colby Covington. Former teammate, current teammate, former roommate, former training partner. I have to assume that those guys no longer work out together. I have to tell you, when this all started between Colby and Masvidal, these guys were so tight. The roommate, the teammates, the current team, all of this still current. I mean, how awkward is that situation? But these guys were so tight. I thought they were pulling a bit of a ruse for all of us. A bit of an elbow, wink, wink to each other. Colby's way, who's a master with the media of getting his boy George out there. George, who's now the media darling, passing the favor back and getting Colby out there. Yeah, I'm wrong. It's none of those things. I think I had the right to think it was. I think many of you thought, oh, come on, there's something going on here. These guys aren't really mad. No, they are. It's real. There's no showsmanship here. There never was. There was no plan. There was no side deal in the back. Dan Lambert sits him down and says, hey, I got a great one. No, it was none of those things. This is personal. Two guys, similar dreams, same division. Things got off course. There have been all sorts of threats, and they're going to settle this in the practice room, and the next time they see each other, yeah, look, you can do all of those things, and those things are very real, and those things happen. But why? If the world wants to see it, and this is what you do for a living, save it, guys. Let's sign a contract. Let's do it under the unified rules. Number 5, Amanda Nunes versus the Bullet, Shevchenko. Now, this was tough for me to put as high as number 5, and it does fit on my top 10 list, and I thought many times about where I should place it because much like you guys, we've seen it, and then we saw it again, and now we want to see it a third time with no evidence that we would get a different result. And that doesn't come from a standpoint that Shevchenko hasn't done enough heavy lifting in between to make this interesting. She has done a great job. Is she a better fighter? Has she shown anything more improved? Has Amanda slid? No, I don't suggest any of those things for you. But what I do suggest for you that if you do add an added twist, which is we do it at 125 pounds, now all of a sudden things do start to look a little bit more even playing field for the Bullet. You mix in the champ factor that would qualify for Amanda. I think now you've added a new element to this. How's Amanda going to do with cutting weight? Remember all the dialogue we had? How's she going to do going up to 145? Cyborg's going to be too big. Amanda's going to be too slow. All turned out to not be true, but remember those thoughts that we had? Same thing goes in reverse. Is she going to be too depleted at 125? Will she lose her power at 125? Those are real questions and real things, and even though she proved it to be false, moving up to 145, it's still a narrative, and it does still help to level the playing field, and it is a fight I would really like to see. Number 4, Conor McGregor and Justin Gaethje. First off, we just want to see Conor. Is that fair? Just want to see Conor come back, see how he's doing. Answer some of the questions that his own coach, Coach Kavanaugh, asked, which is, why are you here? What is it about this that makes you want to go and do it again? I think we do want to know some of that. That's not the biggest money fight you could make. And in many ways, I think we would like to know, can we still get Conor here if we don't bring a whole jackpot full of money? Is it a sport that he loves? Is this something that he still wants to do? Conor McGregor and I were on stage together in England. Some fan asked me a question. I was answering the question. Conor grabbed his microphone and steps over the top of me because he didn't like my response and told the fan. I can't remember what the question was. I can't remember how I'm answering it, but I do remember what Conor said. Conor said, don't do it for the money. Don't ever do it for the money. Do it for the love. And he meant it. That was real. Conor was starting to make some money, but he was spending it on watches. He was starting to make some money, but he'd drop it at the blackjack table. He'd go home with nothing. But it was very real in his mindset that you do something because you love it and you let the money come. I still remember that answer, but I am curious, would that still be his answer? And then when you bring in Justin Gaethje, there's just something special when Justin Gaethje fights. There just is. And as far as the media goes, and as far as how Justin Gaethje has handled the questions about Conor McGregor, it has been the exact opposite of everybody else, who the second Conor says their name, they start drooling, they start begging, they start saying please. All of the things that gives Conor the power that he wanted in the very first place and now loses interest in doing the fight. Number 3, GSP versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. For me, that one just won't go away. It seems as though a fight that Khabib in many ways needs. Now, Khabib, while achieving everything to the highest of levels, for whatever reason is very set that he does not leave 155 pounds. So we're not going to see the champ thing with Khabib as things stand right now. And that's okay, but when you're talking about lineage and history and rankings, we need as much data from as many weird places as we can grab. Champ and leaving divisions is one of those weird places that allows you to accumulate some data. So if he's not going to leave the division, what's the very next best thing? A champion from a different division comes down and says hi to him. It satisfies that for Khabib. As far as George St-Pierre, again, it would allow him an opportunity to do something that had never been done before. It would get everybody a chance to see George again. Oh, and by the way, he would be stepping in the deepest alligator-filled swamp that he possibly could. And there's an honor to that. There's a respect to that. And a chance to be a 3-division champ. The fact that somebody would even pursue it, let alone have a very legitimate opportunity of achieving, makes it a must-see on my top 10 list. Number 2. Now, this one is purely for fun, but I like having fun. Any of you guys ever apologize for wanting to have some fun? Rumble Johnson versus Francis Ngannou. I think there's some things we know about that fight. For example, it will not go out of the first round. For example, there will not be any takedowns. For example, this is going to be 2 heavy hitters. And for example, who can get to the target before who? I think we can concede to that. Now, I realize we've been double-crossed in the sport, and everything that we were certain was true has come out and oh, I didn't see that guy. I never thought that would happen. I feel like we could bet pretty heavily and rest assured these guys are going to follow the script and they're going to play along. And in the world of having fun, nothing to do with championships or contenderships or BMF titles, fun. Number 2 on my list is Rumble Johnson versus Francis. And the number 1 fight on my list that just must happen, Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. The reason it's at number 1, it's not even the excitement, the fun, it's not the interim championship, all the things that happened to Tony, the sitting champion, and Khabib. You know what it is? It's a respect to the sport. One thing that this sport lacks, and it's just a reality of combat, and boxing's guilty of it too, is we do not have a competitive architecture in place. You can move and groove and dance in politics, and if you're better than the guy standing across from you, you can avoid certain people standing across from you. That's the reality. The rankings and the sport and the media and the fans, who are experts. Yes, the fans are experts. They know what they're watching. They understand skills. And the media gets the same credit. Everybody is saying the same thing. The boys in the back, the fellow competitors within the division, everybody is saying, set me aside. Give me another fight. Give me something else to do, because the right fight to make for the sport, and sport trumps everything. What is best for the sport is more important than what is best for an individual, or what is more important for a sponsor or the fans or the media or even business. Sport comes first, and the sport says Tony Ferguson needs to fight Khabib.